I know there's a Filipino thread in the catalog, but something tells me that ain't the right place, so I may as well post here. Outside of the cities, people here treat superstition as a part of everyday life, with witch doctors, the legit ones anyway, on the same standing as actual medical practitioners, and encounters with monsters treated as an unfortunate but inevitable fact of life. Be 8-year-old Flip Friend. Live in rural town at the foot of a mountain range spanning the length of the island we live on. Neighborhood where we live is right next to the town center. Neighborhood is holding a basketball tournament in the street. It's like a mini fiesta with almost everyone turning out to watch it. Neighbor just gave birth and is staying behind to watch her infant son. Her house is basically a bamboo hut, raised on stilts with the space underneath usually left open and used for storage, pic related. She heads to the bedroom to check on her kid. She sees a long, hairy arm poking through the floorboards. These huts usually only have a single layer of bamboo planks as flooring, and trying to reach the baby's crib. Neighbor screams. Everyone outside hears and her husband and relatives rush towards the hut. The arm darts back underneath the floorboards and several people see a large black dog bolt from under the hut, running out towards the town outskirts. It's a fucking Aswang. The neighborhood cancels the basketball tournament and organizes an impromptu armed watch for the next 2 weeks since Aswangs are known to stick around and wait for their prey to become vulnerable. The police station just a few blocks away officially does not endorse superstition-induced hysteria, but quietly steps up road patrol for the duration. This goes on until the neighborhood felt they discouraged the Aswang from pursuing the kid. A bit anticlimactic, but the vast majority of these attacks end this way. For context, Aswangs are similar to Native American Skinwalkers, in that they are people who use black magic to shapeshift into monstrous versions of animals, like dogs, birds, and boars. By day, they are often described as old and wrinkled people living alone in isolated shacks in the jungle. At night, they take on the forms of black animals to hunt. They have a taste for offal, like the livers of women and children, and are known to stalk chosen prey over a period of days or weeks. While they are more often than not loners who voluntarily turn into shapeshifting monsters, it is not unheard of for them to turn to unknowing victims, usually strangers and drifters, into more Aswangs, usually by offering a stranger food or drink laced with their saliva in a process called yanga. If consumed, the victim will slowly gain an appetite for increasingly strange meats, until they lose control of themselves and consume human flesh, at which point they will become a full-fledged Aswang. The process can be reversed by an hablario, or medicine man, so long as the victim hasn't consumed human flesh. They've been around for a long time, with Pigafetta's official account during Magellan's arrival in the Philippines recording an incident of an Aswang stalking. Despite being described as stronger than normal men, they can be killed by mundane bullets and steel in addition to charmed and blessed weaponry, though it's recommended that they be confronted in their human form, as they lack their superhuman strength during the day. I got other stories if anyone's interested, though they're all a bit more personal in scale. It's that time for story time. I'm a guy that lives in the Philippines and has done so for a long time. Moved here from a young age and migrated to the southern island of Mindanao. I moved back away right before COVID-19 to the UK, but used to live in a major city called Davao. I've got a few stories for you all and centers a lot around spirits, with a few on folk beasts here. This happened when I was a kid. Be half shit mixed child in hut with Filipino senpai. The hut is called a Behe Kubo, pic related. Dad's a sailor, so no dad and shit hut until we get some money. Am oldest kid with little sister on the way. Sleep with my mom in one room with grandparents in another. Monsoon season, so freezing balls off in hand-me-down clothes. Can't sleep, so I read most of the night by candle. Keep in mind, we had clocks and phones. We just couldn't really afford much in the way of anything else when Dad was saving up money to build us a house. Area is grassy. Dirt roads, but a kilometer away from the highway at most, with other huts around us. It's late and I'm yelled at to go to sleep. Lights off and try to doze off, but feel weird. Like I'm being watched. No glass windows, just window holes in hut. Feel rustling on opposite side of the house. Leads onto roof where I shit myself over the following noise. It sounded like someone was copying a bird in a high-pitched, guttural whook, whook sound like a chicken, but really quietly. Within a few seconds I hear my grandparents' room shake and our door opens to my granddad, Lolo as we call him, carrying big fuck-off sword, stinger's tail. Next to him my Lola, grandmother, holding garlic. She hangs it from window. Mom is stressed. She tells her there's a wak-wak on our roof. Basically, Filipino bird vampire that enjoys eating babies, children, adults, using talons and beak to tear and consume the hearts of their prey. Only now just realized that Lolo isn't holding garlic, probably because of the sawn-off shotgun in his other hand. Lola runs out, screaming and swearing. Lola comforts my mother and I, keeping us inside. Our neighbors wake up, see flashlight rays through the hut walls and out the window. I hear the shotgun go off, and big fucking wings. It sounded like a literal eagle took off from above, strong enough that the roof shook slightly. These houses stand up to actual storms. Lola makes us pray until Lolo comes into the house. Tells us to go to sleep. He'll hunt it in the morning. The next morning, me and my mom are still kept inside. Apparently when a wak-wak is near or hunting, it's a witch's familiar or pet. So more or less people think that someone was jealous of us, or disliked us enough to try to have us killed. I was a kid, and a few days later we had a really nice dinner with my grandparents. Lola is happy. Gets us whole lechon, roasted baby piglet, shit so crunchy and fatty and delicious. Family prays and then eats like crazy. It's like I never gained childhood trauma. Lola tells us that they killed a woman today who was the witch. She had familiars in her jars, including a wak-wak and black eggs. Black eggs are commonly what Manananggal and Aswang feed to people conspicuously to turn them into one as well. Usually can kill them by destroying these eggs, or for Manananggals, putting salt on their lower half so that they could not join back together. Feels bad for them for killing some woman. Turns out she had a crush on my dad. Went crazy, tried killing my family with black magic. This probably wasn't legal, but that's okay. Dinner went on like normal and Mom was happy about it. They burned the body and even the police knew. Let it happen because superstition and ignorance can kill, evidently. Can you tell us about the dukuns and tuyuls, please? I've never heard of dukuns here. I'm sure we have a different term, but tuyuls I know from my Malaysian/Indonesian friends. In the Philippines we call them chinaks, and I had an encounter with one when we moved to our new house. A few years later, Dad builds us a house with the help of Mom's family. Sheet metal roof and thick concrete slab walls with wooden support beams. Sturdy as hell, just not very pretty. Pick related. No wood unless wood supports hidden in the roof. Been living a few months here. General area is still pretty forested and real concrete roads are still here and there. Tender age of 9 and about to start school in a few days at a nice school. Hyped about friends. From the moment we move in, we befriend the neighbors and local police. Area sketchy cause not super developed yet, and 2 roads away laid a whole jungle more or less. Finally have my own room. Big dresser and mirror opposite my small bed. Dresser stacked with tons of stuffed toys. Bears and Mickey Mouse ripoffs, but none human looking. The night before school, I wake up. It's like some bad hour of the night, always. On top of dresser, I hear whispering. Raining hard outside. Roof is loud, so this whispering must have been normal speaking. Eyes strain to adjust, but slowly I see something replace a toy bear. Scared because it's twitching. What the fuck, man? It's small. Really small. Baby-sized. Fear makes my eyes focus properly. It has weeping eyes and red and pink skin. Its mouth is moving really fast. Its head begins to spin. Like an owl, but all the way around. I start screaming, howling. I've never felt this much fear before. It looked like a fat fetus. Mom runs in, turns on the lights. It immediately vanishes. The noise it made just echoed away. Could not sleep in that room anymore. It genuinely still makes me shake because you could just smell the iron in the air. It never happened again, but I heard lots of babies crying outside my window in the night for the duration of our stay there. Hey Kuyas, half flip here. I lived in Manila for a good while, but only had one strange experience to call my own, and it wasn't too scary. My mom's told me some interesting stories from her childhood in Bicol. 1970s, very rural and undeveloped area. No proper roads, no electricity, etc. Because there was no hospital nearby, for God knows how long, people would have miscarriages and bury the fetus out in the jungle. Because of this, when someone in the barangay gave birth, you would hear the crying of babies coming from the woods until the child was born. Another story my mom told me. This happened to her cousin, and took place back in the 70s as well. Cousin got a teaching job in a different village. To reach the town, she had to walk through a path in the jungle. Got lost, and as the sun started going down, she came across a family living in a hut. Family offers to let her stay the night. She accepts because fuck walking through the jungle at night. The whole family sleeps on the floor of the single-room hut. She joins them and drifts off to sleep. Middle of the night, she wakes up to the sound of talking. She's alone in the room besides the family's teenage daughter, who is still asleep under a blanket. Creeps to the window and peeks out, and sees the family preparing a big pot, talking about killing and eating her as a sacrifice to whatever it was that they worship. She immediately gets the fuck out of there, sneaking back to the path and hurrying away. Further down the path, she hears blood-curdling shrieks, assumes the family mistook her daughter for her, and killed her before realizing. I have one last to share. If I remember any others from my mom, I will definitely post, though. This one actually takes place in Singapore. It's a story from my girlfriend, half Flip, half Chinese, told me once. Told to her by her Pinoy mom. Her family had a Filipino maid at the time, who, her mom says, turned out to be an Aswang. Family had maid hired from agency when X was a baby, too young to remember. X was often sick and quite weak as an infant. It would often be just her mom and her in the house alone with the maid, as the dad would be working all day. Doctors not sure why X was always sick. They thought it was some kind of chronic anemia. Maid would often be asked to go check on X-girlfriend as she needed constant attention. One day my mom walked into X's room while the maid was in there, and the maid was standing over the crib. She had a long, sharp tongue that she was using to pierce my X's skin, and it looked like she was drinking her blood. Obviously been taking care not to drink too much so the baby would not die. X's mom chased her out with a stick and rosary, called the police. Police could not find the maid. However, from that point on, Mom would often hear noises from their roof at night, and even caught a glimpse of a large pig. The Aswang can shapeshift, and a pig is a common form they use, lurking around the outside of the house. If you don't know, you don't see strange pigs walking around in Singapore. Pig would always disappear when they tried to look for it. X's mom had the house blessed by a priest, and they eventually moved from the house. They never saw or heard from the maid/Aswang again, and X was no longer constantly sick and weak after that. There's a story I once read on the internet, possibly on X, years ago. I've tried for a long time to find it again with no luck. Maybe someone else has read it too? I may be lacking some details since it's been so long. It sounds like another Aswang story. It reminds me a lot of the stories of American Skinwalkers. 2 Americans were on a trip on the island of Negros, I think, near Cebu. They were the outdoorsy type and decided to go for a trek through the jungle, just the 2 of them, no guide. As they were hiking and talking, they started noticing something strange. Every time one of them said something, they would hear it repeated off in the distance almost immediately. At first they thought it was an echo of their voices. They ignored it at first, but they soon realized it was getting louder as time went on. Eventually they shut up, as they were on edge, and if they didn't talk, they wouldn't hear it. But in the silence, they could clearly hear something following them in the jungle. They were scared and it was getting dark, so they decided to climb a tree and spend the night. In the middle of the night, they woke up to the sound of something snuffling and walking around the bottom of the tree. They also heard mumbling, and to their horror realized it was all fragments of conversations they were having earlier. One of them shined a light down below, and looking up at them was a large hog with a grinning, human-esque face. It didn't try to get up the tree, it just continued doing what it was doing, circling them. They stayed up there terrified and awake, listening to the thing imitating them until dawn, when it retreated out of sight into the jungle. They hurried on once the sun came up, still hearing the thing following them until they reached the safety of a small village.
Include me saying hi in it.